Sure.
Call the meeting to order. First order of business, pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Consider of any changes, additions, or removals to the agenda?
No, sir.
Nothing. Approve minutes of previous meetings, November 4th, November 19th, and December 11th.
Make a motion that we approve November 4th, November 19th, and December 11th minutes.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Being no discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Ayes have it. Comments from citizens? Being none, department head reports for November and December. Everyone has them. Any questions?
Yeah, Brendan, I don't know if it's, I like how the ambulance has the number of calls this year, number of calls last year, which I think is helpful as those emergency services, fire, those things are growing.
Sure.
It may be helpful to look at what that, there's a big spike in November, what that is associated with.
Sure.
To help us, as that stuff grows.
Okay.
But, just
Yeah, I
one
think
little thought there.
that, so are you just looking for,
Well, they kind of have it broken down in what those calls were for this month.
Sure.
But if it was, hey, we have a big spike in this, that could indicate, something.
yeah, so I
Specific,
think
but-
that we can, for the ambulance, so you're looking more, it's a 23 to Ludlow, 12 to Mount Holly, has the transports. Are you just looking for maybe just kind of,
Yeah, I
So-
mean, it would be, I don't know when we started helping out in Mount Holly, but, is that growth attributed to just Mount Holly? Or is that, is it, hey, we're doing a lot more transports or certain
Sure.
things like that?
Yeah,
It
Mount
would just be
Holly, so we
interesting.
started, and that has, we started our contract, we picked the contract with Mount Holly up last year. And honestly, the amount of service that we provide to Mount Holly for calls is substantial. So that's, but I think if we can, I can ask Steph to put a little more detail in there, just as if there is a spike that's opposed to the previous year, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Anything else? Nothing else on department head reports, and I'll move on to approval of requests for license and permits.
You do not have any.
Huh?
You don't have any.
What's liquor?
So, my mistake, you do have
I was gonna say, you got some.
I'm sorry. That's my fault. Little Mexico, correct?
Just that one?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's my fault. So it's just, let me get to it. So this is for Tortillas Restaurant Group LLC, 57 Pond Street, business known as Little Mexico. This is for a first-class restaurant bar license and a third-class restaurant bar license.
No issues?
No issues. Recommendation was to provide the liquor license that was from the chief of police, Jeff Billings.
And this was on last month, right?
No,
Okay.
no, because, so this was just submitted. I believe we got this fairly, there was, sometimes with the liquor licenses, there's a little bit of a hiccup where it goes from, it's submitted to the state and then to the town. Sometimes, like for example, who was out of town, she got it, Pam got it, so there's a delay there sometimes. This was not on last month's.
It was submitted on the 5th.
Yeah.
If no one has an issue with it, I'll make a motion to move forward with it.
Second.
Second. Any other discussion on it? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Guys opposed? Guys have it. Discussion regarding speed limit reduction on South Hill Crossroad.
So this is a discussion that has been going on since, the summer. There was an unfortunate incident on South Hill Crossroad where a dog was killed by a truck that was traveling on South Hill Crossroad. It was requested of the board and myself to investigate lowering the speed limit on that road from the current speed of 35 miles an hour. Generally, as we've talked about with any reduction of speed limits on any roads in Vermont, there's a process you have to go through. Beginning of that process, it's conducting a speed study, which was conducted by Mount Ascutney Regional Commission from September 7th through the 12th of September. That was provided in your packet with some of the data regarding the traffic that was on that road. Thankfully, Logan Nicole is here, who conducted that. And if the chairman doesn't mind, I'll allow Logan to speak to that. I'd ask him to speak to it. He knows the ins and outs of the data.
Logan Nicole from Mount Ascutney Regional Commission. Happy to answer any questions. Because of my existing schedule, we only have so many traffic counters and tubes. It's tubes, air tubes that go across the road that we use to collect the data. Because of my schedule, I wasn't able to leave it out as long as I like to. I was able to leave it out longer than they require you to, which is 48 hours. I generally like to leave things out for 2 weeks because I feel like you get better data the longer you leave it out. So the data that you have only actually covers, I think it starts on a Saturday, because I started it on a Friday and I picked it up on a Friday, but you trim the days you put it out and set it up to the full 24-hour periods that you actually have it out. So it starts on a Saturday and it runs through that Thursday. This summer, I can set it out there again, and we can collect a longer set of data if we want. Basically, what I found is that it doesn't seem like you have much of a speeding problem out there. It seemed like most traffic travels under 30 miles an hour, or at least it was during the stretch that I had the tubes out. Some jurisdictions, you use the 85th percentile to set speed limits, which is 85% of traffic is traveling under that speed. The 85th percentile for that road during the stretch I had it out there was 27 miles an hour westbound and 29 miles an hour eastbound, which is, you got a little bit of a difference there just because one way is downhill, I think. Happy to answer any other questions if you have any.
Anybody got any questions?
Yeah, how is it based on pressure that you're able to determine what vehicle is driving over it?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I just started this job like a little over a year ago. I think it's fascinating how much data we're able to pull from these tubes. But it's 2 tubes set across the road, and when a vehicle drives over, it sends a pulse of air based on the weight and the speed. And then because there's 2 tubes, you're collecting that pulse of air across 2 tubes. And then the speed at which you get the pulse of air and the pressure of it, they're able to turn that all into, you get class data too, you get the speed and the class data. I think it's fascinating. I didn't realize how intense these things were and how much data you're able to pull from it when I just drove over them all the time. But now that I work with it, it's pretty neat stuff.
Can you tell the weight of the vehicles?
It estimates, but it's really just by class. Most of it is the length of between the wheelbase is what they're basing it on, and they get that with the second tube. You're able to figure out the length of the wheelbase and the speed of the vehicle. They're pretty accurate. I had set some tubes up down on 103, just down past 131, and one of those showed there was some weird data when you get a lot of cross traffic traveling across the tubes at the same time. Some of it was registering as like cars traveling 100 miles an hour, and I don't think that's happening down there, but Other than that, most of it's pretty accurate. It works pretty well.
Okay. Anybody else got anything?
I do.
Oh, okay.
My name's Marcia Wemple, and I live on South Hill Crossroad. And it was my dog that was killed. It was killed by an HB Energy oil truck. The man was lost. He was on the phone, and my neighbor said he was barreling down the road. My dog was with me, got spooked, and he darted out of the garage, and there was no horn, there was no beeping, nothing, and the stretch of blood and whatnot was about 12 feet. I could barely make out that it was him. Because I screamed so loud, my neighbors came out and the man didn't stop. Aside from that, recently there was another dog that was hit on Town Farm just the other day. This is all of the comments of people complaining about this traffic on Town Farm Road, where the speed limit is 35 miles an hour, and I don't know why, if Town Farm is 35, why is South Hill Crossroad 35? In the survey that was conducted, it's not a paved road. It said it was paved, and it's not. In addition to that, Brendan's been very helpful in the past 8 months since Wilson was killed. There's a lot of people that walk up there. There's a lot of kids. There's a lot of dogs. There's people walking on either side of the road. And I've lived there for 14 years, and it's used as a crossroad, which it is. But the speeding is excessive, and we all desperately want it to get lower, but I'm the only one on the street that has a big enough mouth to come here and request that. And I don't know where to start, what to do, but that's something nobody had to see what I did. My neighbor came over with his tractor and he buried my dog in the yard. I called the oil company. They were less than sympathetic on all of it. I don't know what I had expected, but I rescue senior animals, and it's what I've done since I've lived here, or actually prior to here. So I need help from you folks of what to do to help this speed limit get reduced. We can't, I understand if people are going to speed, what are you going to do about it? I get that. But everyone, or my two direct neighbors said to me that this oil truck was traveling at a great rate of speed. When I called the company, they said he was doing 33. I said, well, how do you know that? Which just happens to be 2 miles an hour under the speed limit. I don't think he had any intention of stopping except for me screaming so loud.
What was their, I'm sorry, I'm sorry about your dog too. I'm very sympathetic. I have a couple of dogs. How did they determine it was 33? Do they monitor their?
He claims that. I asked him to send me a screenshot of it so I could see it. And of course that didn't happen. Quite frankly, he didn't care. He chalked it up to an accident, which I get that, but I know he even admitted to one of the guys on my road that he was lost and he was trying to, somehow he was up at Okemo Acres, I think it is, right past me on South Hill Crossroad, the first road on the right, that's where he was delivering oil, and he was from Springfield, so he somehow got directed down South Hill Crossroad. We also had a tractor-trailer incident there this summer as well that knocked out the power for, I don't know, 5 hours plus or something, and I think there's about 8 or 9 houses directly on South Hill Crossroad. So, and again, I've lived there 14, 15 years now, and I just want to figure out how this can get reduced. I've complained to FedEx. I filed a complaint with them. I filed a complaint with UPS because the drivers at any season are speeding like crazy. They stop quickly. They have to deliver packages, and I'm sure they're on a time schedule. But I want to alleviate anybody having to see what I saw, and I don't want it to be a child or a senior or anybody.
All we can do is, we can do the study on it again and see. I mean, the state pretty much sets the speed limit for the back roads. Unless
get
we
that.
have justifiable cause to change it, and it comes down to enforcement. Unless you have enforcement, you can put that speed limit at 10 miles an hour, but unless, we don't have enough cops in this town to enforce that. If we do it for one road, then it's just a chain reaction, because everybody wants to do the same thing. Everybody wants to drop the speed limit.
So what are you telling me?
I mean, we've got to do a traffic study, and unless we can justify that the speed limit is that drastic.
There was no speed limit there until I talked to Brendan after my dog was killed. There was nothing posted there of what the speed limit was.
And
The signs went up afterwards?
The
Yeah.
signs went up afterwards.
I mean, most back roads don't have posted speed limit signs all over
I
the place.
understand that.
We are very sympathetic as a board to what happened. We conducted a traffic study. I mean, it sounds like from what Logan says, we'd be willing to do it again for a longer period. But I mean, the average speed limit was 22 miles an hour. We don't have any giant spikes.
I live on the road.
I
know
understand
you live
that.
around the corner.
I live around
on
the corner. I
road.
spend a lot of time there.
Yes, I know you do. Your property's right there, and I get that. But I'm just saying, is for somebody who lives there, and I see it every day, every single day. And if there's nothing that will be done here, then I don't know what I'll have to figure out. But if you're saying the best you can do right now is another survey, then what else can I do?
Do you think it's, like, I know when you're standing on the side of the road, oh, it looks like they're going a lot faster. It seems like it's going more, do you think they're going more than 35?
I have no doubt.
Yeah. Do you think probably that short span wasn't catching
If you come
that?
down South Hill Crossroad, there's a little bit of a bend, and then it goes down a little bit. So you're not going to be able to see around the corners of what's there. And even when the tractor trailer went down there and got caught, he was going way too fast for that road. And then all the wires, they crisscross. So he got snagged in all of those. I just would really like to get the speed limit reduced.
Do you think it's more, like you said, gas trucks, UPS trucks, FedEx
It's
trucks? Did you seem
FedEx,
to mention those?
it's oil,
No.
well, there's some people, I mean, even the locals go flying down there. I mean, like you said, it's a back road, but I live on that back road. And I see people walking by all the time, especially in the spring and in the summer. And what happens if somebody gets hit?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, Brendan had 2 cones put in front of my driveway, which were removed by the police department, and they weren't brought back. To me, it's a visual thing, that if people see this, they hopefully will slow down. As I said, there's not even a dozen houses that live on that road.
What do you think is a realistic speed limit that should be on back
Well,
roads?
as I said, there's a lot of people, like all the people that replied to this girl, Lynn Fox, whose dog was hit by a young guy with Vermont plates and a very big truck flying uptown Farm Road, and he hit the dog. The dog ended up going underneath the deck. They got the dog, but the dog has a hip issue and some other things. People that I talk to, that I see on the street, on the roads up there, because we're all neighbors and we all get along and things like that, they would feel comfortable as well as I at 25. Again, a lot of it is visual. But if for some reason you can stop one person from speeding down that road and hitting somebody or hitting an animal, there's deer across the road all the time. There's people up there.
It goes for just about everywhere though in Ludlow.
I understand that,
Okay.
but I'm just here to talk about my road.
Right.
You know, I looked around at different speed limits that are around town and, you know, up on South Hill, and then parts of even 100 before you get to the dump are 25 miles an hour. Now, why is that 25
That's a state highway.
before it's a state highway?
Well, not right by the dump. but
No, then it goes to
It
40.
changes right by the vault there.
But from the beginning of the street
Mm-hmm.
to where it goes into a state highway, it's 25.
In the village.
How
It's
many
30 on
25s do we
Main
have,
Street.
Frank?
Huh?
How many 25s do we have? How many roads are 25?
Just the village.
Just the village, just
Yeah.
in the village, nowhere else?
All your
By
back roads.
by statute in the state of Vermont, most are back roads are 35. And the catch with it too is that if they are not posted,
They're
they're
50.
50.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Yep.
If they are not posted correctly, they are basically 50 miles an hour is a back road. So, and I see both sides of this with the road. And, from where I sit, I see Marcia's concern 100%. But my recommendation for the board is that we need to, if we want to really consider changing this, we have to do another study, because what this does, what we have with the study that's there, we have to go off of the facts that we're given. I don't doubt that cars are probably going faster. They probably are. But if we go off, much of like the chair said, if we go off of how people are saying, we're going to change every road in town. So we have to go and have Logan do a longer study and say, yeah, these are the numbers.
This isn't about the other roads in town.
Well, yeah,
It's a nice-
unfortunately it is.
It is.
Because if we do one, we have to treat everyone the same. So Marcia, if we change your road to a 25 because you feel that.
Brendan, you told me when I met you the day after my dog was killed.
Yeah,
You said you successfully changed speed limits when you were town manager in another town.
I did.
So,
Completely apples and bowling balls, two different situations. The speed limit, the study that was done on the road, whether it was in Cavendish, the numbers justified changing the speed limit. Is 100%.
you put up the study that Logan does, they see that it says what the speed limit is, they
It doesn't say,
automatically.
there was no signage. All there is the tubes in the road. There's no sign.
Somebody was telling me there were signs down there.
Absolutely not. And you live right there, so you never, did you see the
No, it
flashing
was
signs?
beyond where I was.
There were no flashing signs. There's nothing.
That's interesting, because one of my
I don't know what
neighbors
people
said
are
that
talking,
there
because there were
was.
never, because I saw that there's no sign, because obviously that would defeat the purpose of having a speed
Right.
study.
Yeah, I do wonder, I had pulled a lot over where to place the tubes. I think the tubes work best on an area that is a little bit flatter. I need a good place to tie off to, because I like to chain my equipment up, because the equipment is pretty valuable, so I don't want to install it. So I do lock it up with chains, and I try to hide it off the road, so you can't actually see the box itself that does all the calculations and does the machine side of things. But the tubes, I also try to avoid driveways, because you don't want to catch people, if people sitting on top of the tubes, bad for them. So I don't want people slowing down on their driveway and catching that too much. But, that road is a lot of traffic. So it was kind of hard to find a spot
Right.
that made the most sense. I did wonder a lot when I placed it, whether I should move up the catch the bottom of the hill more, because it seemed like that may be where you're going to get more speeding. But ultimately, I'm only going to catch the data where I place the tubes. And I think there is, just from my own perspective, I feel like sometimes when I see those tubes in the road, before I was running these counts, I would slow down a little bit. I didn't know what they were. You kind of slow down as you approach them. So I do wonder if there is that effect of you grabbing. But there's not much I can do about that.
Well, I didn't see any of that because I don't go down that way presently, or even then, I just kind of careful where I go on that road. But I was wrong about the miles per hour, but people who walk every day, every morning, had said, did you see that they set up, I don't know if it's called a speed trap or what it is, it's probably not the right way to say something, but as I said, I didn't see it. It was mentioned to me because everybody up there knew about my dog. So,
Brian, at some point I want to talk about this, if they're not posted 35, it's 50 miles an hour, because that's on To me, that's ridiculous.
Well, yeah,
Obviously,
and
you need a
there's
bunch
a,
of 35 mile
there's,
an hour signs.
there's
So-
statutes for where it's posted, how far, and what I'm getting is not, most people don't know that. And what it is that you have to have them posted properly, because if someone is then pulled over on a road and it's not posted, they wanted to fight it, it does refer back if it's not posted, so many feet, et cetera. So,
That should be another discussion.
absolutely.
All right, well, I'm not really sure where to go from here then.
We're gonna do another
I
study.
would say that if, that's really would be the next step, is to redo this and reevaluate it.
I have more time next, I fairly recently started with my job. My department was a little bit behind the traffic studies, and I had a very busy season last year.
Oh, yeah, I
That was why I was somewhat limited for the 7 days that I was able to get it out, and it was kind of the end of the year.
It was from the
I'm only able to set
7th to the
counts
12th.
when it's really above freezing. And
This.
so next summer I have a lot more time, because I am caught up there. I can definitely get tubes out there for 2 weeks. You can come
I'm at
talk-
99,
talk
which
to
is
me
kind of
about-
like right in the middle.
I'll talk to you about the location if you want, where you feel.
That'd be great. Anything to help.
People on the road feel that people are traveling the fastest.
Well, that's, if anybody saw this girl's post, it was on social media.
That's on town farm.
But
And it was
unfortunately,
Town
Town
Farm.
Farm is very different. It's,
That's
you know,
different animal.
I understand that. I'm
And in the
just saying.
meantime, to help Mark, because I did speak with, is it Mrs. Fox about the incident on Town Farm.
She told me that.
And a big part of it is, and then, Brett touched on this as well, is that the unfortunate side is that we could set the speed limit at 5 miles an hour. And unless there's enforcement, it's not going to matter. So one thing from that we can do is have more of a police presence out there. If we're gonna do it, that's my conversation I had with Mrs. Fox, Town Farm, South Hill Crossroad. That is something we can do now. While
It's
we're
the
waiting for
loop.
this.
It's
Yeah.
South Hill,
Absolutely.
Crossroad, Town Farm.
And I'll
It's that
speak
whole
and
big
continue to
loop.
speak with the officers, make that part of their loop, because that is something we can do
That would be
tomorrow.
helpful.
But again, it's difficult. We have limited officers, but that can be something that can be, we've spoken about it on West Hill, we've spoken about it on Gia Farm. It's something I can do tomorrow. I can't change the speed limit, but.
No, I get it.
So,
Logan, you can't do anything unless it's over freezing, over.
I won't be able to set tubes until, probably like April,
Yeah.
May. It's gonna be pretty warm, it's gonna be consistently above freezing.
You're not gonna do it in mud season.
The mud season is gonna tear up my tubes, like that.
So I just bring that up because I'm sure the traffic is much different this time of year than it is during the summertime.
It is very
Much
different.
Yeah, there's not much I can do about that. We do have a camera that in theory works on radar. I can, tie it to a tree, but, it's pretty limited. It doesn't, I don't always trust the data that comes back from that. It's kind of a newer technology and it's just not as involved as the tubes.
And Logan, based on the data here, average speed of 22 miles an hour, your 85th percentile is 27 miles an hour. Is that, I guess I'm curious if that's consistent with maybe a road that is posted at 25 and that's how people would drive. I don't know if you do speed studies on places that don't have speeding issues, but from looking at the data, it does appear that people are driving considerably lower than what the 35 mile an hour speed limit is.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of districts use like a speed study like this, and then they would set the speed limit around the 85th percentile.
Yeah.
Is what you would, because that's just what traffic is traveling. And then there are different techniques to try to help calm traffic. We call it vertical elements. You make sure that you don't cut trees close to the road. You leave trees close to the road. You put up signs that are really close to the road. Those kinds of things really help slow people down, and it really gives people the sense that they shouldn't be driving as fast. Shorter, more narrow lanes, things like that. It's hard to tell. I don't, there's a lot of dynamics to play with all of this. I think when I was out there setting the tubes, there was a lot of loose gravel out there too. I think that kind of helps slow people down because it just feels like it's a little less safe. And so I don't know if the road was in a better condition in those moments or under most circumstances, if it's feels a little less loose gravel. But all those things can, come into play. And so that's where I think a second speed study could really help if I could get it out there, during, the height of summer, during July. Leave it out for a good 2 weeks, solid 2 week stretch. Give us a little bit more data to work with. But I think that the data does support like a 30 mile an hour speed limit. I don't know about 25, maybe feel a little low, but I can talk to the trend about it.
Yeah, we'll get some police presence out there for now and try to control it some.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Okay, moving on, discussion regarding the high school building.
So this is a discussion that was requested a little bit last year as well. As you're aware, the Expeditionary School is currently our tenant in the former Black River High School building. Last year, it was requested to extend their lease for a year, which will extend through the summer. Part of the caveat and agreement there was that when we came back to revisit the lease this year, there would be discussion on, and this is from a town's perspective, what the future intent of the town is for that building. This is kind of beginning that conversation. I guess Mr. Pullinan is here on behalf of the Expeditionary School, kind of looking for some guidance from town, the board, as to exactly how we want to move forward here, because obviously we're going to be revisiting a lease, but I'm not coming, I'll be coming with any proposal right now that I say this is what I have planned. I've had a lot of input. I think everybody has different ideas on uses for the building, in the next 5-10 years. But I think we need to have a relatively begin a group discussion on this because it has been something that has been talked about for a number of years now. As we approach, I think this is completing year 6 of the lease, if I'm not mistaken. So I would just, I guess at that point, open it up for any discussion. I think this will be an agenda item on a few meetings moving forward, because I know there are I get a number of questions regarding, it is a town building, the town pays for the expenses of it, heating, fuel, maintenance, et cetera. We are provided a rent of $6,000 from the Expeditionary School.
Is that 6,000 a year or 6,000 a month?
Yes, a year, yeah, 6,000 a year. But the rest of the cost is the town. So there are questions of what the town's intent is to continue to move forward. Again, I'm looking for some guidance and some discussion regarding this topic. So I will turn it back over to the chair at that point.
Anybody? Pat?
First, I'd like to thank the Select Board and the community of Ludlow for supporting the school. As Brendan mentioned, we've been in operation for 5 years. But if you can believe it, this was actually year 1. I say that because this was the first year that we were sure that we were going to be able to receive tuition, and we had enough running room so that we were able to get out and recruit. And as a result, we're currently up to 13 students, which is double of what we had last year. Last year was kind of an anomaly because we got approved so late in the year. But our intention would be to continue to stay in the building, and we'd be happy to negotiate a lease with the Select Board and the town of Ludlow. Ultimately, we'd like to be able to grow, and the fact that we had growth this year, and the best place to have growth is in the lower grades, 7th grade. We actually picked up 5 students this year. We are in a position to be out recruiting again for the next year, and we've already had expressed interest in coming to school next year, which means we will be growing more. And I guess when it comes to growing any school, it just is a matter of time and patience. As we grow, we're in a better financial state to be able to work with the town to help pay for utilities, help to pay with the lease. And those are some areas that we'd be happy to negotiate moving forward. We'd also just ask that if we are looking at negotiating for a lease, for us, it would be better to be in a position to negotiate a 2-year or 3-year lease as opposed to 1 year, because 1 year leaves us in a position where we're going to be right now is going into March. The question is, what do we do for next year? And to be up in the air on that makes it, again, a little bit more difficult when it comes to trying to recruit students and staff. So I'd be happy to answer any questions.
How much space do you use in that building?
Currently on the second floor, we are in math room. What used to be the library space is the general gathering area. We have a Spanish room. We have an English. We have a social studies history room. So the left-hand side of the middle floor, we're using those 4 classrooms. We use the other side as office space. Upstairs, we use the science room lab. We use the classroom up there for health and art. And downstairs, we use the lunchroom and what used to be the old band room. So.
Anybody else?
Brennan, all the input you've been getting, other than the school, any of them even worth looking at?
Say that again?
Are they worth looking at? The other?
No, I don't think that I have not received any, I've reiterated this to Pat in school, that I don't think there is anyone ever coming to me and saying the school needs to go. I don't think that is on anybody's radar. But you use the amount of classrooms, and they're saying, is there a way to?
Yeah.
Because part of the building is unoccupied, so is there a way for the town to? I guess a lot of it is to, cover expenses, whether it's an office space. I don't know. That's why I said I always think about it. You drive it; it's a gorgeous building. I went and spoke at the school 2 weeks ago. It's great. So there's never anybody and I don't think that anybody's coming and say, well, guess what? Go find a new place. That just doesn't seem like something that necessarily is a viable thing to me, but there's a lot of room left in the building. So there's questions of how can that be utilized as well, and have that be a fully functional building. I'm not subscribing to those answers.
I understand the perception fully that, it looks like we're a small group of people, but the idea is to grow.
Exactly.
And the school, maybe I'm the only one that thinks it, but it's important to a community. And if we can build it back up, I think it helps for the future of the community. As for other uses, I don't know if there's another school district close by that has an elementary school that could use a little space, but there's other ways that we could accommodate using the building, I'm sure.
There has been,
So,
expanded schools. The one, and I continuously will put it to bed when it's brought up, is the initial thing that comes up is, well, we could use it for housing. You're not going to put housing anywhere near an elementary school.
No, you don't.
It's just not going to happen. So let's just forget that. So it's, this is a discussion that has to be had. Has anyone come to me, and I certainly don't have it at this point, a viable, I went, wow, that is a fantastic idea. No. But these are the conversations that, is there something, a preschool or something? I don't know. Daycare. I don't know. But those are the options that these conversations will foster, because we owe it to the community, requested that we did have it. So, but again, it's not anything that has come up where I went, wow, you're right.
What's our cost?
Right now, we're
You don't have to,
budgeting
you don't have to.
85,000 budgeted coming in, minus the 6 from the, so
So
79.
I would probably ask you to sit down with Pat and come up with some kind of a lease program. And, something, if we can start hammering on that 85, I think it would take a lot of pressure off.
So as right now, the numbers work out to be 7% that their lease covers. And it sounds like you're using more than 7% of the building. And obviously, we're not trying to make a huge jump. But
Right.
But do you have target goals for recruitment you're talking 2-year, 3-year plans, right? So in order for us to, or at least from my perspective, is okay, next year our target is going to be 20 kids, and then
Yes.
and take that into consideration
Yes.
to negotiate with Brendan to kind of come up with
Yes.
a plan that if you plan to grow and let's say potentially take over the whole building, maybe that's a 5-year plan. I
Sure.
think the board would like to hear that.
Sure.
And that would alleviate
Right.
the taxpayers who look at it as we're subsidizing the school. And I think that's the angle that people look at it.
Right, and I appreciate that, and yes, I think we could come up with something similar, but, we take care of any of the spaces that we use, so if I use one classroom and clean it all, or I use 2 spaces and clean it all, unless there's somebody else in there using the space, I'm not sure. And I appreciate your math and what you're alluding to as far as coming up with the percentage of the building that we're using. But I'd be happy to talk. And I guess the only other piece is the first 3 years, I know
It was a tough 3 years. I know it was.
However,
it was very tough.
it was, but at the same time, even though the town paid for the utilities and the building, the school actually collected money, took students out of the local education role. So those students that were attending ESBR were not put into the budget for Two Rivers. And as a result, the 10 students we carried each year was offsetting the school budget at $180,000 plus a year. So for the first 3 years, we actually were paying our weight. And again, we'd be happy to negotiate as we increase our enrollment. We have a little more financial backing to deal with. And no, we're not looking for free rides. We'd like to pay our way. So.
Okay.
Yep.
We gotta look at this again in February after
Yeah.
you both sit down.
And I know it's a good subject and you want to get into it, but it's helpful if we can get through it as well, so we get an idea of,
Yeah.
where we're going to be sitting with Elise, because comes March, we're going to say to students, we're here or we're not.
If Pat and I can sit down, we'll work on something within the next few weeks, and
Brendan, what would that carrying cost for that building look like if there were no tenants in there? There was nothing in there, we're still, it's not gonna change much.
not gonna change much, because you still have to heat,
Yeah,
so we pay 16.5 in electricity. That might be the real cost,
But you're still gonna have some of that.
You're still gonna have some of that.
because
Yeah, I mean-
realistically, if we said, hey, if the school wasn't there, we still need to find something else to go in there, which would be a struggle. But that could be a good thing to look at of hey, if nothing was there, it would be X amount.
Just saying that if there was nothing there.
An empty building's a doomed building. I can tell you
Absolutely, well,
that.
that's the
It's a doomed
thing,
building.
is that, but so if there was nothing there, you're still looking at upwards of $65,000.
Yeah, so, but like, that's a good, hey, the town, if we had nothing there, the town is still paying $65,000 a year to
Anyway,
keep it.
Yeah.
and you start, as to Scott's point, you have an empty building, a doomed building, you start, things just by not being used begin to crumble. So then those maintenance costs and repair costs are rolled into that. So, yes.
Anything that would go there, I think, would be municipal-based or school-based, like long-term.
It would kind
So
of.
it makes, unless, the town had some big expansion and, hey,
Yeah.
we need this space for that, a school does make the most sense. And
A school, and then, is it possible, as we've talked about, in the next 3 to 5 years, emergency services buildings, things like that, is it possible, to have office spaces in there? Again, that's a municipal use, part, and, it's something like that where, from working in a school system too, you're right where it has to be school, because probably Pat feels the same way, is that once you start, municipal is one thing, municipal in school, okay. You start mixing office space in school, it just makes me nervous from a safety perspective a little bit.
I think you also have to be careful, because once you get out of the educational component in that building, the fire marshal's going to come in and tell you need to put sprinklers in.
Exactly,
And,
yeah.
that's a easy
So
expense.
there's a kind of there's some hurdles there, but I think it's, it's not as black and white and easy as I think, the people are like, well, let's put this there. It's not that easy.
Yeah. I think still, something like a Okemo Valley TV or things like that could be a good fit, and I just think still being open to those kind of rental spaces.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
Good. We'll discuss that some more and come back to it.
We'll reach out.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
FY '26 budget discussion and approval.
So just to, we've worked through the budget, over the last probably month. Feels like we're in as a board, we're in a good spot with this budget. I would request, I have one piece that's kind of moving a little bit on me right now. I thought I had the number tonight, I don't. So our budget as it stands right now after our last meeting would be, total expenditures would be $7,241,208.40, which is up $397,816.40 from last year, minus, after projected revenue, the budget that would be to be raised in taxes that we would put forward to vote would be $4,993,595.40, a change of $248,776.40, which is a 5.3% increase from last year, which is actually, it's a down. Last year we had a 6.4% increase. So we have a very good budget here, I believe. I would ask currently, board has given me another day or so. We might have to meet at the end of the week just to approve it, and then go forward. But this isn't going to change more than a few decimal points. But that's what I would ask. Then next month, or in the next, probably by next meeting, we'll have to look at the warning, which will have the budget on it. We'll have proposals for voted articles. So that will be, fire truck will be on there. We're working on those numbers currently, but those will be proposed, and we'll have to basically vote. Before we do that, we will vote to approve the budget. I'd like to do that in a meeting, either end of this week or early next. We'll just finalize it at a 6 o'clock meeting and get that. So if you go for the report, then our next step would be for voted items in the annual warning. So, but again, I thank you for your work on this. We spent the time. I feel it's a good budget. It's about as tight as we can get it at this point. We do our due diligence in this town to try and, keep the costs as low as possible while still providing the services, which is a difficult ask sometimes. But I thank the departments for their time and their effort, and I thank the board for your effort and time that we've put into going through. If you haven't been to one of our budget meetings, some of it's line by line. It can be a little tedious, but we do our due diligence to make sure that everything's accounted for down to the penny. To be honest with you. So.
Any other discussion on that? Being none, municipal managers update.
Just a few. Winter so far, as it seems to have lately been snowing every day. And, our road crews have done, we've done a good job, especially over the holiday week. It's been tough, but getting roads cleared, getting them opened. The ambulance, fire department, PD did a heck of a job, was busy. I don't think traffic was necessarily as busy as projected, but it was still, times I've come into town, it was pretty busy. I know the ambulance and fire department were out every day, multiple times. So everything on that end went pretty smooth from our perspective. We know we're just kind of hitting that, a quarter of the winter is over, so we still have some of the, busy months ahead of us. So we continue to push forward. Salt and sand budget's taken a little bit of a hit over the last, 2 weeks, but it is what it is. No major repairs on the trucks. We have a few that are in and out of the shop, but I think that's just kind of the nature of the beast at this point. Two big things that we're focusing on. I'm starting to have this week. I started basically mid-year, fiscal year meetings with all the department heads. That began today. Kind of having our departments look at, what's their projections, what main check-in. As we know, municipal government can be tough, especially coming into midway through the year. Winter's a grind. Just checking in and seeing how staffing is. Staffing is very good across all the departments right now. Morale is pretty good. But the big thing is also talking with the department heads on, trying to look out and play some offense. We've been playing a lot of defense for the last 2 years. Floods, new town manager, so you're trying to get things in order. But I'm working with the department heads on giving me, their 6 to 12 month, 1 to 2 year projections. What are your main topics that you want to cover? How do you think we can push our department ahead? Whatever that is, repairs, being proactive, and trying to be, a little more out in front, community-based stuff, being a little more present and getting out exactly some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. So that's a good point right now. Kind of wrapping those up. They'll be this week. And the two other, you should have gotten it today, second draft of the charter for the town and village merger. That was sent out today. Sent around to some, the boards as well as some other staff members to comment on. We'll have a joint board meetings for that probably within 3 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Find the date, comments, and then eventually that will go, if it's ratified correctly and put onto the docket, that will be part of the vote on the Tuesday after town
You
meeting.
probably want to include the light department board on that as
Yes,
well.
yeah, because they're in it.
Yeah.
The other piece is the 1% options tax. We've had one committee meeting on that. That was a public forum. Now that's after the first of the year. We're going to have to start. We'll have some more just to continue those conversations, which will be another vote the Tuesday after town meeting during voting day. I encourage people to come talk about it. There are some, our last public forum went very well. A lot of questions were asked, a lot of headway was made and explanations of just exactly how this is going to benefit the town. I've harped on this a number of times, the expenses that we have that are major capital expenses, life safety expenses that will be tremendously offset by this tax. So we'll publicize that. Please come out. talk about it, stop by the office, talk to me, talk to any of the board members. That's really where you get the best explanation is talking to your fellow community members and rather than listening to me spout off about it. So that's all I got on that.
Okay. Any other business?
Transfer station bathroom.
They're up there today. They're waiting on a plumber.
Okay.
So Trevor texted me today. They were there today trying to, finishing the electrical today. Calls, plumbing, Jim Call is slated for, I believe, the end of the week is what they're held up on. So should be, we did, all the outside stuff, work is done. They're just waiting to plumb it in.
Okay, anything else on other business? Moving on to possible items for next meeting, February 3rd. School.
Please, yeah.
We're gonna have another budget meeting.
Budget, yeah, well, I'll send out the dates for the budget. It'll probably be the end of this week.
Warrant orders, possible executive session for personnel contract legal issues.
Yes, sir. Personnel and contracts.
Do I have a motion for?
Make a motion that we go into executive session for personnel and contracts.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it.